What's going on, fragrance family? It's your man Gator, better known as the novice nose out here in these fragrance streets. Today I get to talk about a fragrance that I have been anticipating for probably about 8 months now, man. The fragrance in question is this guy right here. This is Mancera's Fig Me Up. I was intrigued by the note breakdown when I first heard about this fragrance, and I have been stalking the internet for it since it was actually announced. Now that I got my hands on it, is it any good? Was it worth actually bringing it in? Well, we'll discuss that because I have spent a good bit of time with it as usual. So you know the drill, guys. Pull up, pull up, and stay tuned. So again, the fragrance we're talking about today is from the house of Mancera. Of course, this is Mancera's Fig Me Up. Again, this is a fragrance that I was anticipating for so long, man. I mean, since November, I think is when I first heard about it here. But this is the bottle, of course, here. Let me see if it'll focus. There we go. So, of course, they're after my own heart with the purple and gold here in the color scheme, man. Go Tigers. But anyway, again, this is one that was super intriguing from the note breakdown for me. So let's see here. Speaking of, now note breakdown for this, top notes are rhubarb, French violet, and fig leaf. The mid notes are plum, oud, fig nectar, bourbon geranium, and Australian sandalwood. And then the base notes are tobacco, white musk, toffee, which plays a real important part in it in the later dry down, and then tonka bean. So, like I said, very intriguing note breakdown. Now, I will say that I did a decant dive on this about a month or so ago. And I got one of those little cards from Mancera with the fragrance in it. I found that there's a little bit of a differentiation between how this fragrance opens up on that little card as opposed to what is coming from in this bottle here and on the second decant, because the second decant that I got was one that was decanted from a bottle. So here's what I'm getting at here. So, well, actually, before I even do that, let me get into the... So, of course, standard fare with Mancera. Always has an awesome atomizer here, beautiful bottle. Oh, and by the way, it's got a little bit of a dent in there. That's because I've decanted out for travel. So, although I did spend a good bit of time with this fragrance, man. But this fragrance opens up with everything that is advertised in the name Fig Me Up. I mean, you're getting a definite fruity nuance here, and it's definitely fig that you're getting here. It's got that subtle sweetness, but it is definitely fruity. Now, along with that, you're getting a floral nuance in the background, and that is that French violet at play. It is definitely fruity and floral at the top. Now, I did a little bit of research on what French violet does to a fragrance, and from what I read, what French violet actually does is it kind of gives the floral nuance, but it also kind of smooths things out and gives a kind of a creamy type of nature. And this definitely has that. It has that little bit of creaminess there at the top from that French violet, floral, of course, along with that fruitiness from the fig. Now, the main player after the fig, of course, the main player though is that rhubarb at the top. What that rhubarb does is it actually lifts up this fragrance here. It gives it kind of a crisp, uplifting type of vibe. It gives it a little bit of an energy. So it comes across really, really fresh, really, really fruity with a little bit of a floral nuance here in the opening. Now, that's the first thing that was the differentiation between what I got in this bottle as opposed to what I got on that decant card. When I did the decant dive, if y'all were paying attention on that decant dive here, I mentioned that the fragrance kind of came across almost vegetal in the way that it opened up here, and it leaned a lot more green than I expected. When I got that decant from the bottle though, and as I kind of spent time with this bottle, what I got is that it's not actually as green as I was interpreting on that decant dive, and it makes me think that that carded sample may have had something going on with it, because the rhubarb, while it is in here and while it does give a slightly fresh, well, actually not slightly, it gives a really fresh vibe to the fragrance, it doesn't come across nearly as vegetal as it did when I did that carded sample on the decant dive. The rhubarb plays its part perfectly here in uplifting the fragrance and giving you that really fresh, fruity opening. So for the first 20-30 minutes, you're living in this beautiful, fresh, slightly floral, fruity bubble here. And then it starts to kind of get a little bit of the peeking in of the woods into the fray. Now, the woodiness that comes across, this is the second differentiation between the bottle here and the carded sample. What I get from this is a lot darker presence here in the way that the wood presents, and what that is that's that oud that is actually making itself present and darkening up this profile a lot more than it did on that card. I mean, it is a stark difference between how that presented and how this presents from the bottle. From this bottle, you're getting a darker, richer, woody vibe here. Now, it's not an animalic type of oud or super funky type of oud. It's nothing like that. It actually still is kind of fresh in the mids and slightly floral, and I think that could be the geranium that's kind of coming into play in the mid as well. But you're still getting that fresh floral nature. But the woods in here just add this depth to it that wasn't in that decanted card. But the oud in here just gives a little bit of darkness, a little bit more depth here, and just a little bit more oomph, just to kind of give it a little bit more punch here. That really kind of grounds the fragrance, and you still get those fruity pops and things like that, but you're getting something that's going to be a lot richer experience than you might have expected when you first sprayed it on. Now, I spoke about the richness and the depth of this fragrance. This is a fragrance that actually does transition. So while you get the freshness, and the fruitiness coming from the top of this fragrance, as you start getting into that second and third hour here, you're starting to only get like little pops of the fruitiness that's in there. But what you are starting to get introduced is a little bit of what the other major player in this fragrance is, and it was unexpected to me, is the toffee. So you really start to pick up like nuance of the sweetness from the toffee in here. As a matter of fact, like, you can really, as it gets into like the further dry down, you're kind of left with a toffee and wood scent, believe it or not. It's beautiful. It actually smells really, really nice, but it does transition from being a really fruity style of fragrance to something that's really dark, rich, still fresh. Don't get me wrong, it still has some freshness going on there, but it's going to be a dark, rich, woody vibe of a fragrance here with some sweetness smoothing it out from the toffee. Now, this fragrance still maintains its freshness though, from the top of the fragrance, from the very opening into the end of the fragrance. Even when that toffee gets introduced, you still have a freshness to this fragrance. Now, I speak of, to the end, longevity on this thing, I'm getting somewhere in the range of about 7 hours here, 6-7 hours on skin. It does transition. It does, basically project very loud at the top here, especially when that rhubarb is really doing its thing and really kicking out. So it's pretty loud here for the first hour or so. But then after that, it kind of runs into more of a maybe 1 to 2 foot projection on this. Now, throughout the life of the fragrance, though, it has a really nice sillage. So you're getting a lot of fruits that are kind of left behind, fruity pops and floral pops that are left behind in your sillage in the first couple of hours here. And then once it gets into like that 3rd and 4th, 5th hour here, you're getting just basically kind of the freshness from the florals and wood as far as your sillage goes. But it does kind of go into a skin scent around that 4th and 5th hour there. You're picking up at that point, like I said, mostly the woods and the toffee. The fruits aren't really there, although occasionally you might get a pop or so in the air. Now, if you spray this on clothes, though, you do maintain that fruity nuance for a lot longer. I say about 3 or 4 hours, and to be honest, actually longer than that, because you'll still smell a little bit of the fruitiness on it on your clothes until you wash them. Now, I'd be remiss if I didn't mention the compliment factor on this fragrance. I've actually spent a good bit of time with it and got to wear it to work, got to wear it out in the wild, and I've gotten quite a few, neck breaks and, comments on how good I smelled here. And as a matter of fact, I know 2 people at work. I had 3 people in the grocery store when I passed by them. When you get those types of things come across, you know that your fragrance is actually, trailing you and actually, drawing attention to you. This one is one that will draw attention to you, but mostly because of that fruity nuance, but also because of the fact that it just lingers. Whenever you walk past someone, it just kind of lingers in the air. This is a great fragrance also for spring. I think this is a fantastic spring scent. I think it's going to be a good solid summer scent too. It's got to watch the sprays on this because you can overspray it. Fall is going to be a magnificent fragrance. Not sure if it's going to have the potency, even with the darker aspects from the agarwood. I'm not exactly sure that, because it's not a super dark agarwood, I'm not sure it's going to be a really good winter scent. But I mean, 3 seasons ain't bad, and I think this is going to be a fragrance that's going to get a lot of wear all year around, for me to be completely honest. So at the end of the day, guys, this fragrance is everything that I kind of hoped it would be. The note breakdown was intriguing, and guess what? The fragrance itself is just as intriguing. This is a beautifully fresh spring fragrance here. It is perfect for those warm weather days. It gives you that nice fruity pop, but it also has some grounded woods here that kind of allows you to get your swagger induced. And this is definitely one of those swagger augmentation fragrances that I always talk about. This is going to get a lot of wear from me, and I have been, like I said, stalking this thing since it dropped, but now that it's dropped, I'll be preaching about it probably until the next spring season. This is a great buy. This is one of my favorite Manceras that has dropped, and that's saying a lot because I love the House of Mancera. That's all I got for it right now, guys. Have you put your nose on it? Speaking of, if you have, let me know in the comments. And also, as always, make sure you like this video, subscribe to the channel, and of course, share this video with someone you know that loves fragrances, guys. And until next time, as we always say, whatever you're doing, however you're doing it, make sure you make today the best day ever on purpose. Peace out.